it's Samantha from Jessama Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you what to do with the scraps from our Ammolite tutorial. So here are the pieces from that tutorial. Just bring them over. I just want to show you that. So if you haven't already watched that tutorial, I will provide a link to that in the description below the video. It's a really fun tutorial with really great results, as you can see. So here are the pieces that we made in that tutorial. So you do end up with a bit of scraps after that tutorial, and they're really quite pretty scraps. I've got them on this piece of plain printing paper here, and you can see that they're really quite shiny and beautiful. So what I want to do is I want to create a just kind of a squished mosaic with them. So just take each one, and I'm just going to take that off. And now this is a very squished mosaic. It's not supposed to be all that geometric. So all I want you to do is just take these and slice them into pieces. And if you have any areas that are just plain black, like over here, I will generally snip that off as best I can. Move that off to the side, and then just keep these pieces. We can use those in a minute or two. And just trim out as many of these pieces as you can from your scraps. Okay, so we've got a lot of little strips here, and they're obviously not all the same length and they're not all even, but that's fine. So I'm just going to move them out the way quickly. And I'm just going to grab one to start with. Press that down. Grab a contrasting one. And then press that against it. And let's see, need another one. Okay, and these edges over here I will fix up in a little while. But you want one edge to basically be straight, whereas the other one you have all of your bits and pieces hanging off. And if you've got some nice short ones, what you can do is you can kind of just press them together like so to make a longer one. And so just continue doing this until you've used up all of your scraps. Okay, then once you have got something that basically looks like this, go along and just trim a little bit all of the pieces that are kind of sticking out a lot. This one was really sticking out, and I'm going to press that. I'm going to take that and I'm going to press it in there so that it creates more pieces. And you can do that quite easily. There's some more over here that probably need to get trimmed a bit. And there we've got kind of another two pieces over there. Okay, and then we've still got a little bit of scraps, and I'll show you what to do with those in a little while. For the moment we're going to be working with this. Take it, and I want you to just press it together, and then grab a piece of plain printing paper and give it a burnish. And this is just going to kind of stick these pieces all together. Okay, and if you see any areas that you really want to trim up, you first trim it like so, and then you're going to see some areas that need to have kind of a plug in. So just take from your scrap and kind of plug it in, like so. And this will end up looking quite pretty, but just make sure that you plug in as many of those little gaps as possible. And this is why I'm saying it's kind of like a squished mosaic. We're not doing anything particularly accurate. There we are. And grab all these pieces and put them to the side. Then I will give it a very quick burnish again. And lift that up. And you could leave it like it is, and I probably am going to leave it just like that. Just trim it though, you want to get rid of these messy edges. Okay, and there's our first piece, and you can see that on its own looks very interesting. So I'll pop that to the side, and now we're going to take our other scrappy pieces. And what we're going to do with these is we're not even going to chop them, we're just going to kind of try and slot them together like so. Just grab some and just see about squishing it together. You can chop it into more pieces if you want, but I find that unnecessary. Just take it and squish it together. Okay, and here is how it looks after that. Now you grab a piece of plain printing paper and give this a good burnish so that it's somewhat stuck together. Okay, and I'll just use my blade to press in these sides just to get it into a more kind of rectangular shape. Then I'll burnish it again. Okay, then I'm going to chop. So, because now this is why I said to not worry about breaking it up before, because we're just going to chop it into pieces now, and this will break up the lines plenty. And just make sure you get some pieces that contrast quite well with each other. And of course the other one is going to be the better looking of the two, the previous one that we made, because this one is made from the scraps of the scraps. But it'll still look quite nice. There we are. Then burnish again. And that'll stick it all together. Okay, then trim away your excess. There we go. Now you've got a really interesting kind of mixed up piece of metal foil. Now of course I think this one looks the best, but again they both look really nice. So that is what I do with those scraps. Now because we are making a project, I do have an idea to go with it. So you're going to need a piece of black Primo that's been rolled out to about 2mm thick, which is the thickest setting on my pasta machine. I'm just going to burnish down this one area. There we go. And trim away the excess. Okay, and keep in mind that the techniques that I've shown so far can be used with just about any scrap. I find that it works best with that foil because it just looks really nice. But again, any scrap will work. Now you're also going to need some sort of a stencil, and I've got this really large pebble stencil. So here's pattern number 1, number 2, 3, 4, and then you just kind of have some smaller patterns along here. We are going to be using this pattern. But before we can use our stencil, you're going to also need some metal foil or metal leaf. So I'm just going to bring over some of that. And I'm going to be using some silver leaf. And this is a great way to use up scrap if you happen to have any. I don't at the moment, so I'm just going to be ripping this up and placing it on. But if you have scrap metal leaf, this will work really well for it. So just lay it down like so and smooth. Okay, and I am going to also bring over a gold piece of metal leaf, and I will repeat with the gold until I've covered up all the black. So I'll repeat with gold and silver scraps. There we are. And I did cut away a little bit more excess because we did not need as much clay as I originally had. So now we've covered up most of that black. So now we're going to grab a piece of paper, and I want you to burnish this on thoroughly. Okay. And we're going to lift that up. And you can see it does crack a bit. So I'll just give that a stretch and burnish it one more time. Take any excess and stick it down because you don't want that floating about. Then we are going to bring over our silk screen, our stencil. You can use a silk screen as well. Any stencil will work for this. Just try to get an organic pattern to match with your Ammolite. Now we can either do this pattern or this pattern. I think I want to go with this one over here. Okay, now because of the stencil, it's not going to stick to the clay. So you're going to need something that you're not going to swipe across the surface. So I'm going to be using black StazOn ink. You could try alcohol ink as well. Just hold this in place and start pressing. And just make sure that you hold it thoroughly while you're doing this. Okay, and I think I've got it pretty well. I don't want a completely crisp pattern, I just want a light pebble pattern. There we are. Well, you can see over here that the ink leaked a little bit. It's fine. We're going to lift that up, and you want to let that dry for a moment or two. You can check on parts where it's leaked to see whether it is dry or not, but this will take maybe around a minute or so to dry completely. Okay, so that's just about dry enough for us to work with. Just pop that down, grab a piece of paper and burnish, because when we were tapping it with the stencil, it did take on a little bit of the texture. Okay, and that will remove some of the ink, which is fine. We want it to be like that. If you don't want it to be like that, don't burnish with the paper. But I didn't want it to be as dark as it was, because then it clashes a little bit with this. Okay, now I'm going to run it through a pasta machine on my thickest setting. And that's going to crackle it just a little bit. Then I'm going to take it down one setting and roll again, so that we create this interesting crackled pattern. And now when I rolled it through the pasta machine, I rolled it through from this end to this end, took it down setting, and then rolled it from this end to this end, which is quite important because then you're going to get cracks going this way only instead of it going this way as well. So it's kind of more of a streaked crackle rather than a square crackle. Okay. Now I do want to do the same for my Ammolite here. I'm going to roll it through on my thickest setting. There we are. and I will do that for this one as well. Okay, so now we're going to start assembling, and we're going for a very simple necklace using my, I do believe these are my rounded dagger cutters, and they just look really nice when you assemble them into a necklace. Okay, so I'll pop those to the side, and I'm going to grab this. Okay, and now my tile's a little wet because I did clean it, so just make sure that that is dry enough that the clay will stick to it. Okay, then for a good measure, I'm just going to give it a quick burnish onto the tile to stick it, because this means that it won't stick in the cutter, and it's also getting rid of any fingerprints that might be present. Then I'll go to choose a section that I like. So just work your way around and make sure that you're happy with what you're getting. And I quite like over there. Okay. Press down. And it should cut quite cleanly. There we are. And then we're going to skip the second largest one. And then we're going to move on to the third largest. And cut. And cut. And there we go. There are little crackle pieces. Pick that straight up. It should come out pretty cleanly. There, pop that to the side. Okay. Have a look at how this turned out. Okay, and I'm just going to gently press around the sides because we do have little bits and pieces along the side because of the crackle. But overall it should come out pretty clean like that. And now we're going to do backing later. We're not going to do that right now. Now I just want to just gently smooth sides. And then I'm popping them on a piece of plain printing paper, and I'll bake them in the oven on that piece of paper. Okay, there we are. Now we will move on to our second veneer, which is this one. And again, we will burnish that onto our tile to make sure it's nice and stuck. And if you're working on a ceramic tile or a glass tile, this will work. I wouldn't recommend cutting out cutters on paper unless you absolutely have to, due to maybe texture on the back or a specific way you want to cut it, because they generally will stick in the cutter then. There we go. And we need 2 of these. And this is the second largest waterfall dagger, and then the smallest one I also want to cut out too, like so. There we are. Then I'm just going to pick this up with my blade. And put that to the side. I think I might have distorted this just a little bit when I picked up, so I'm just going to stretch that a second. And if you are thinking that you have distorted something, go back with the cutter and just see if it fits properly. And the end there had just distorted a touch. And this one, the end, also looks like it might be a little bit distorted, so just give it a very light stretch. There we go. And this one, the reason it distorted a little bit is because it's made from fairly soft Primo clay, whereas the other one had already been crackled. So there we are, those are our other 2 pieces to go along with it. Again, go around the edges, smooth, and then pop with your pieces. Then you'll pop them in the oven on your piece of plain printing paper for a full hour at Primo's recommended temperature, and then when we are done we can assemble our necklace. And we are going to, well, when they come out of the oven we will apply our backings, we will fix up the edges with maybe some liquid clay, then we'll pop them in the oven again, and then we will take them out and pop some resin on, which is when they're really going to look great, because when you have metal leaf on something you absolutely have to use resin just because it makes it look so beautiful. Okay, so I'll bake those for an hour and I'll show you what they look like when I'm done. Okay, and our pieces are out of the oven. So here is our first one. You can see how that looks. And then here is the second one. I managed to cut out as well. Now, just something that I want to mention, when you are baking on plain printing paper, once your clay comes out of the oven, you might find that it tends to curl up a bit, like that. If you see that while it is still hot, you'll take it out of the oven on the plain printing paper, grab a tile, or even a book will work, and you will just press down hard onto it, and this will flatten it all out completely. Leave it there for maybe about a minute or so, and by then it will have cooled enough and you'll find that it is much flatter, which is quite important. Okay, so now for the backing, what we're going to do is I'm just going to take our excess clay. You can cut out all the pendants you want from this, but generally you're going to have clay that ends up with metal leaf on it, so this is what we are going to use for our backings. Grab this and churn it through your pasta machine until it is one even colour. Okay, and this is generally what you'll end up with. You'll see that you have flakes of metal leaf in there, and so this is why we're going to be using it as our backing clay. Now I've rolled this out on my thickest setting, which is about 2mm thick. And all we're going to do is we're going to grab our piece, and you can see that around the edges we've got some issues. So if you do find that it's crumbly around the edges, or it's just not neat around the edges, grab a craft knife and just go around the edges and clear off those bits that are scraggly. Like so. Yeah, much smoother, much nicer to look at from the back, as you can see. Okay, then grab a bit of black or translucent liquid clay. I'm just going to put on a little bit. You don't need a lot, just need a little bit. And this is not completely necessary, I find, but it does help get the clay to stick to each other. Then take your cutters and use the same cutter you used for your main pendant to cut out a piece from the back. Okay, and it keeps doing this because the metal leaf tends to make it stick to the tile and then crumble a bit. Don't worry about that. Then apply that to your back. Like so. And squish around the edges. Like so. Then I'm just gonna use my blade to just trim out away the excess. Okay. Then we've got somewhat nice back. Now grab a texture of your choice, sandpaper or a texture sponge will work. And I'm just going to start pressing around the edges. And notice that I'm pressing around the edges, I'm not just pressing on the top, I'm pinching it around the edges so that we create this kind of domed look. And I'm also pressing on the top at the same time. And that will create this backing. Then use your finger to just smooth along the sides and to get rid of any excess that you might have. And everything I am doing here you will repeat with every single one of your pendants. Okay. And I'm just looking. And then always position it so that you can look from the top, and you should not be able to see any excess around the edges. Okay. Then I'm going to grab a little bit of black liquid clay. And this is black liquid Scrappy clay, and I like this better than the Kato black liquid clay, simply because it is thicker and it comes to a matte finish. So if you want a shiny finish, go with the Kato liquid clay, but it is quite a bit runnier, so just keep that in mind. And then you'll just go around the edges, and this will hide things like maybe metal leaf or any scratches or cracks that you might have. It will fill those in, and it will just create a neater edge. And it's not too difficult, especially if the liquid clay is fairly thick. And I do believe that Polymer Clay Superstore carries this clay, so check out in the links below. I have a link to their store in the links below, and you can go and check out. They carry a whole bunch of different brands of clay. Alright, there we go. Check on the front to make sure you don't have any liquid clay on the front, which is quite important. And just smooth away if you happen to have any. I generally, as a rule, just go around the sides and wipe. Then bring over your sponge or texture again and just press on it, because when you are handling that liquid clay you might get a few fingerprints on the back, which won't look as good as they could, and then you will bake it for about an hour at pretty much recommended temperature, and you'll repeat that process with every single one of your pendants. Okay, so they're out of the oven, and here is what they look like. You can see the sides are much neater and the back looks pretty nice too. So now bring over a resin mat, which is essentially just a silicone mat, so that the resin, like for instance here, just comes off very easily. And then I'm just going to take one of my pieces, and I'm going to be using Lisa Pavelka's Magic Gloss. If you're looking for a place to buy it, Teresa Salgado from Tiny Pandora has a nice bottle there if you're looking for it, so if you happen to be shopping there, check it out. Also, I think Linda's Art Spot also supplies them. There's lots of places where you can get this Magic Gloss. And I use it a lot now because it's a UV resin which cures really quickly compared to the ice resin I used to use. And it creates a really nice dome without too much hassle as far as drips go. It takes quite a bit to get this to drip. Okay, then I'm just going to use a skewer to take that resin and drag it to the edges. Now, general rule of thumb with this resin, or any resin actually, is to pour less than you need onto the bead or piece, whatever you're making. Drag it to the edges, see how it does, check if there are any spills, anything like that, see if it pulls away, and then once you've dragged it to the edges, then you will add more if necessary. So you can see I'm just dragging it to the edges, and you can see how beautiful that's turned out. Okay. And it's moving all over the resin mat. Apologise for that. Okay, and you can see there are some areas where it does pull away, but in general that is what you're looking for. Okay, and then if you need to, I think I might want to add just a drop or so more. You don't want to add too much, and that should be good. Then you'll repeat that with all of your pieces, and then you'll put it in the UV lamp for at least 15 minutes. I generally like to leave it for about half an hour so that it is rock solid when it comes out. And then also, before you pop it in the UV lamp, just go through and check if you have any bubbles, pop them or scoop them out if you need to. Okay, so all our pieces are resined, and so I'm just going to bring those over and show you. You can see what a flash that brings to the piece after it has been fully resined. And here is what this one looks like as well. See, it looks really nice. Okay, so I'm not going to show you all of them, they basically look like that, but now we do need to drill them. So I've got this one over here, and I've also got a pin drill. And I've drilled the others already, so this is the last one. You just start on one end, and so when you're drilling through your piece like this, I would recommend making your piece at least 0.8 millimeters thick to make it easy to drill. So you drill through one side to start with, then you bring over your drill to the other side, and you drill through the same way. And I just find that this gives it a neater hole. Okay. And it can take a moment or two to work its way through. There we go. Then spin through a few times just to clean out that hole. There we go. And now we are ready to start assembly. So let's just bring over our pieces so that I can show you the assembly. So here's number 1 and number 2. Let me zoom over here. There we go. And hopefully you're able to pick up on the camera how flashy they are. Not sure if you can pick that up. But basically I have got 2 necklaces like this. They look quite shiny. Okay, so now I'm going to be working with some Acuflex. I just want to bring these over to the side where they're not in the way. And I've got some Acuflex, and I've already finished off one end, and I'll show you how to do the other end. It's basically the exact same as this end, so I'll just show you the one. And I also am going to be using some black crystals. These are the ones that I'm going to be using. And I just thought those would go quite nicely with the piece. So I'll just string on one of those, then one of our beads, and then another one, and then we'll continue doing that until we have finished all of our beads, which should not take very long. They are all drilled and ready to go. Okay, then when you've done that, grab a charlotte crimp. I think it's also called a clam crimp if you're buying it off of eBay. Then you want a crimp bead. Press that onto your Acuflex. Then bring the charlotte cord crimp up and press that over your crimped crimp bead. Press. Then use a jump ring and just open that up. And I'll just bring over my other end of my clasp. And that is all there is to it. Nice and easy. Okay, and you can see the back's still matte and the side is really, front is quite shiny. So you can see there if I move it around how shiny it is. It's quite hard to see when you're looking at it flat, but there hopefully you can see how shiny that is. So I'm going to go and complete the other one and then I'll show you both of them. Okay, and here is the other one. There we go. And let me just pick that up and move that around so you can see how shiny that is. So you can imagine when you're wearing it how it's going to look. So that is basically it for this tutorial. So I do hope that you enjoyed it. It was a bit of a leftover Scrappy tutorial. That's why I showed you how to create this kind of leopard print almost on this metal leaf, because it also is a great way to use up any silver, copper, gold, metal leaf, any scrappy bits that you might have lying around, as it creates quite an interesting pattern. So you should try that out as well. It's a great way to use up scraps, and this is also a great way to use up the metal leaf scraps from our Faux Ammolite tutorial. So if you enjoyed it, please do let me know in the comments below. I certainly did enjoy showing you guys how to create this tutorial. And give me suggestions on other faux stone tutorials that you would like. I will probably respond to them better if you join my group Jessama on Facebook. It's Jessama Tutorials Polymer Clay Community. That way you can post a photo of the stone that you want me to imitate, and I will be able to have a look at it and I'll be able to get that out for you. So please do consider joining my group. And if you would like to support this channel so that I can post videos every single week, please consider becoming a member of my Patreon community. You receive extra rewards on there, also coupons to my Etsy shop, Jessama Design, where you can buy cutters and texture stamps. So please do consider becoming a patron, because that helps this channel keep on going and it helps me release more than one video a week. So please do consider that. And as always, I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.